Welcome to City Life. I'm Beverly Thompson. Durham City Council gained a new member recently. Pierce Freelon was appointed by the council in August to fill the vacant Ward 3 seat. While we're just getting to know him as a city councilman, he's Durham born and bred, and he knows this city well. Joining me to talk about what he hopes to bring to the council and to Durham in this new capacity is Councilman Pierce Freelon. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you again. Councilman, for those of us who are just getting to know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, you mentioned my roots here in the Bull City, born and raised. Durham Regional Hospital, it's called Duke Regional now, but yeah, I'm a product of Durham Public Schools. I went to E.K. Poe Elementary School, Durham School of the Arts for middle school and high school. And yeah, I'm a musician, professor, director. I have a background in the creative arts and come from a creative family. And yeah, I think we need an artist in office, someone who can help our city come up with creative solutions to some of the very real problems that we're experiencing.
So tell me, what do you feel like you bring to the council and to Durham?
I think it's important to have a local perspective. When we talk about, zoning issues or about, public safety or Parks and Rec, I am the beneficiary of a legacy of that work going back to when I was a little kid. And I think that matters. Those types of relationships in community matter. Just the other day, I was visiting the home of Miss Mozella McLaughlin. She's 103 years old. I grew up spending weekends in her backyard, staying with her. She was a member of St. Titus Church, and she has a long memory. She's been in that house for 76 years.
Wow.
And so as the neighborhood has shifted, as the demographics of Durham are changing, I think it's increasingly important that we have people that have deep roots in the community at the table making policy decisions.
So I know you're used to being on the public stage, but what do you see as the biggest difference between your role in the community and what it has been and what it is now as a council member?
That's a really good question. I think that, as a private citizen, I was an advocate for a lot of issues that I cared deeply about. I wanted us to have a more expansive and inclusive and Afrofuturistic view of public safety, for example. I wanted us to think about reallocating resources and making sure that we are preventing crime by investing in youth and not just policing. I wanted to make sure we were creating cultural opportunities and supporting small businesses and women-owned businesses. And it's one thing to be an advocate where you're telling city council what to do. It's another thing to be on the inside, to actually have a vote and to see how slow things actually move. I had like an hour-long conversation with our city manager, Wanda Page, about the laborious process of the budgeting, retreats and coming back and forth with different departments weighing in. Everybody's got a wish list, and I'm realizing how slow things move, and you can't just snap your fingers and make something happen, which is what I think a lot of folks in the public don't realize, is that it takes a while. It's a type of ship where you turn the wheel. You begin turning the wheel, and then slowly you see this incremental, very slow change.
Right.
So I'm learning about grace. I'm learning about patience. I'm learning about listening and collaboration, and how important those things are. And I think that's a little different from my change now mentality when I was on the outside looking in.
Okay. Well, what do you see as the three biggest challenges facing Durham, and have those changed since you got on council?
Yeah, I mean, I think the there's really just one big challenge that has several symptoms and issues that are tethered to it. And that challenge is, or maybe two big ones. It's the dual issues of poverty and systemic racism. I think those two things are intertwined. And we learned that from learning about intersectionality and studying the works of radical Black feminists and Black liberation theorists. You learn this idea about intersectionality. There's no one thing. They're interlocking systems that we have to deal with. And when I think of poverty, poverty is something that when COVID-19 comes around and it sits on top of poverty, then you have increased, you have unemployment, but you have increased unemployment in the Black communities. You have, and this is the intersection of poverty and systemic racism. You have COVID-19 rates, are here in North Carolina, but in the Black community, it's even higher. And in the communities where folks are struggling with disparities in education, it's even higher now because our public schools are mostly kind of Black and brown kids and who are suffering disproportionately due to the changes, the radical changes in how COVID has impacted our school systems. So we really need to look at a kind of a broad intersecting view of systems. And I think that that poverty and systemic racism are there at the top. And affordable housing, joblessness, crime, those things stem down from those two major keys.
So given the complexities of all of those issues, how do you think those challenges can be overcome?
Well, I think that, our ancestors gave us some valuable blueprints. And, I'm looking at proposing a project with some community organizers. Actually, I'm not proposing it. I'm following the leadership of community organizers and what they've been asking for years. So there's this radical Black feminist poet, queer woman named June Jordan, who said, and a poet actually dedicated to South Africa during apartheid. The poem goes, there's a line in the poem that says, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." We are the ones we've been waiting for. Yeah, so that's a June Jordan quote. And I think that the answer to a lot of these problems is in the community. The solutions to poverty are in the community. And if you go, as I have been, to to Hoover Road, to Cornwallis or the Mac, and you ask folks like, there's been an uptick in violence. There's been a lot of shootings recently. What do you think we should do about it? What's going to make you feel more safe? And then you pause and listen to what they have to say. Overwhelmingly, they're talking about, we need programs for kids. We need jobs so that, the folks who are kind of on the margins aren't lured into a life of crime, so we need to give them other viable options. I'm not talking about, some slave wage, job making $7 an hour where you got to get 2 or 3 jobs just to keep your head above water, but an actual living wage job that, as Maya Angelou said, makes use of your talents but does not degrade your dignity. We need dignified, good work. We need jobs. We need programs for kids, things for kids to do. It's not even that complicated. Like, when kids, especially during COVID, when kids aren't in school, they don't have the structure or mentorship or ability to be in that space with those teachers and those counselors. We need to give them something else. Otherwise, they're going to be running wild in these streets, without guidance, without mentorship, without structure, without sports, without art. Like, our kids need these things. And I think when we reframe our thinking about, for example, public safety, you think about youth programming as a public safety initiative, then that allows you to reorient your budget to reflect your values. And so I'm gonna quote another poet. I already brought up June Jordan. Let me call forth my ancestor, Maya Angelou, who said, we need clean and well-furnished schools. We need safe and non-threatening streets. And we need employment which makes use of our talents but does not degrade your dignity. Those are things that the city is capable of providing, the city and the county together. We're capable of providing these things. And I think the better we do at that, the better we'll do at the ills of poverty, at the scourge of crime, you know, and at the problems associated with you know, affordable housing and joblessness. You know, because if you got a good job, you can pay rent. You know, you can put your kids in a good position to be successful in school. You know, if there's food in their bellies, they can study, they can participate fully. So yeah, these are just, I think that we are the ones. We have the tools, we have the money, we have a budget that's $500 million in this city. And if we just spent it with a little more listening and a little more intention, then we could see a lot of our problems go down, in my opinion.
So very basic, but so complex still. All of the issues that you think that we have to deal with as a city. But if you had a magic wand, how would you achieve all of that? What would be your ultimate vision for Durham?
A magic wand.
Yeah.
That's a nice, and our, I'm a artist and a poet, so I'm thinking Wanda, you know, Wanda Page, that's our city manager. And I do think that, you know, Black girl magic, Black woman abundance, we lucked out, okay? Because, you know, Tom Bonfield did a great job, but we're in very good hands with city manager Page. So yeah, if I had a magic wand, what would I use it on? I would probably eliminate poverty. You know, I guess that's kind of a quick thing, easy thing to say, but you know, people don't commit crime, you know, when their basic needs are taken care of. And yeah, if I had $100 million to spend, I would use it creating a universal base income or jobs guarantee program that made sure everyone who wanted to work was able to, that made sure everybody's basic needs were taken care of. And I think we would see a huge improvement in a lot of these other areas if folks had their basic needs met.
Okay, so it's one thing to talk about what you want to do and to change when you're not on council, but the reality of how that change happens may be different when you're on, you know, the other side of things. Is there anything that you've encountered so far that's different than how you thought it would be, insofar as what it takes to get things done?
Yeah, different than what I thought it would be. Well, I think that Durham is an incredibly, you know, diverse community and a lot of different ideas about how to get things done. And there's some distrust. There's some distrust between political institutions and between communities of organizers and institutions of power. I mean, I'm a millennial, so let's just put it out there. The movement for Black lives is popping right now. And thank goodness it's popping, because I think this is our civil rights movement. And you know, there's a lot of distrust, for example, between police and young Black millennial community organizers. And I understand where that distrust comes from, because when we, not just through our lived experiences, have negative encounters with police, if we've been driving while Black or racially profiled, as I have been, you know, here in Durham since I was a kid. I can remember instances of racial profiling. So I understand how, you know, especially when a Breonna Taylor or Sandra Bland or a George Floyd happens, it ignites that sense of that we've been oppressed for a long time and that these things are systematic. We need to do something about it. What has surprised me is that folks on different ends of the political spectrum on contentious issues like what do we do about public safety aren't really talking to each other for the large part. I don't see my young Black millennial organizer friends, you know, in dialogue with Chief Davis or vice versa. And I sat down with the chief, you know, last Friday, had a deep conversation with her. And I told her, look, let me speak on behalf of my generation. You know, we want to see the police budget, like let's say theoretically in half. Let's say you had $80 million. We're spending 70 million on police this year. Let's say 10 years from now, our budget for police is $80 million. What would it look like for us to cut that in half? So there's now $40 million for police. We'll take that other 40 and we'll put 10 million. This is exactly what I told her. Theoretically, hypothetical. We put 10 million in each of these impoverished neighborhoods, and we hire a bunch of coaches and mentors and people doing youth programs and jobs trainings and mental health counselors, and we will reduce the police force to a really specialized unit that deals with a very specific set of issues that require very specific skill set and training. And then other people with other training and other skills come into the communities where the violence is happening, and they each have their own $10 million budget to deal with violence and crime. What you think about that? I asked her, expecting her to say, that's a terrible idea. We need all the money we can get. What are you talking about? Chief Davis was like, bruh. She didn't say bruh, I'm paraphrasing. But in my spirit, she said, bruh, nephew, because she's my auntie. I would love for that to happen, because I think that, the police force has gotten, too big. They rely on us for too much stuff. If you start unloading responsibilities off my plate, I would gladly open up the budget for other departments to take over those responsibilities. We don't need to be getting cats out of trees or dealing with, homeless issues that would be better dealt with by social workers, or dealing with mental health crises, strapped, rolling up strapped to somebody who's having a mental episode. That's not going to de-escalate the tension. Like, she acknowledged that there needed to be this radical shift. And I was thinking in my mind, like, where are my organizer friends? Because this is what they've been calling for. And we have a chief now who seems very open and receptive to the idea. And it was funny too, because at the end of that conversation, I said, Chief Davis, what you told me today was really amazing and beautiful and powerful and inspiring. But please let me know if this was off the record. And she said, nah, that's not off the record. You can share that. And I've shared that publicly. And since then, I've heard her reiterate these points. She says, you can't arrest crime away. You need other resources to help provide for these kids so that they can, see a better alternative. By the time the police get called, it's already too late. And this is coming from our chief. And again, that really surprised me, because I think that's what organizers have been asking for. And I think they have a willing partner in our chief, but those dialogues aren't happening. So I can see very clearly, this goes back to one of your earlier questions, I can see very clearly that one of my roles and responsibilities will be to be a go-between and to figure out how we can reorient our budget to better reflect our values. And let me just say one more thing about this particular issue. I think that, and this is just me as an elder millennial. I'm still a millennial, I'm 36. That makes me like probably the oldest tier of millennial that's possible to be. So as an elder millennial, I see the calls for defund police, and I say, I don't agree with that language. It's actually, what we need to be saying is refund the streets, because I could see how elders, people in their 50s and 60s and clergy and folks who got jobs and are living in communities where violence exists, they're like, defund the police? What you mean? What's going to happen when some shots ring out, and what we going to do? Like,
exactly. That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, what do you say to people whose kids are having to jump in the tub to escape gunfight?
Right. What you mean? Like, that's not a good look. But
as an elder,
it's a poor articulation, in my opinion. It's a poor articulation of something that's actually a good idea. The good idea is to invest in our youth, to create a fund and have our budget reflect the values of the full human beings that are out here in these streets. Because a lot of the people out there pulling these triggers, it's and Chief Davis will tell you this. She said this to me. She said it again at a press conference on Friday. It's kids. It's 15, 16-year-old kids, 17, 18-year-old children, human beings, you know, and I was having so much trouble sleeping last night thinking about this. Like, these are children that need mentors, that need guidance, that need brothers like me to take them under their wing and say, "Nah, young buck, like, do this, try something else," you know. And if we write them off as criminals, then that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we saw that with how our previous generation, bless their hearts, dealt with the war on drugs. It was with the crime bill. It was with the mass incarceration. And when you take a kid who might be, you know, dealing with some mental trauma, or, you know, might have social emotional issues or problems because they grew up in, you know, in an environment that created that mental strife in their minds and in their hearts. When you take a kid like that and you throw him in a prison, guess what? He's found his mentors, he's found his guidance, he's found his purpose. And that's not a space where we want kids to be finding their path. You know, we want them to find their path in the warm and loving embrace of a Baba Chuck Davis at the African American Dance Ensemble. We want them in the, you know, under the guidance and protection of, you know, of a Pastor Jay at you know, St. Joseph's. We want them, you know, under the mentorship and tutelage of a Coach Keenan, who's the football coach at Neal Middle, who's going around hood to hood, you know, taking care of these kids on Safe Zone Fridays. We want them in the bosom of a Mama Nia with Spirit House at Harm Free Zone. And that is really where we begin to make the change. It is not by grabbing these kids up, you know, and locking them away and throwing them away the key. That's how we actually perpetuate the cycle that when they finally get out, oh, now it's on, because now I've had OGs that I met inside that taught me some new tricks that I'm gonna use as soon as I get out. And that's how the violence continues to escalate. So that's how, you know, and I think I know Chief Davis understands that, and you know, seems willing to be able to have her budget, public safety budget, reflect priorities and initiatives that are aligned with taking care of that kid, not that shooter, not that thug, not that N-word, that child, that 15, 16-year-old baby who just needs some guidance and a loving, warm mentor and a plate of food and a job. Those three things.
That somebody cares.
And a warm place to stay. And those things, and we have the ability to provide that. You know what I mean? And so that's all. You want to ask what I've been up to for 2 months? Answering and wrapping my head around that question. We deal with a lot of stuff on city council. People call us about zoning. They want to know why the lights are so bright. They want to talk about all types of stuff. But I grew up in Durham, and I've lost friends, nephews, classmates, cousins to these streets. And that is my number one priority, is taking care of those young Black men who are both the primary victims of the violence and perpetrators of the violence, and in being perpetrators are victims themselves, in the same way that, you know, a little kid who's a child soldier who gets, you know, thrown into this thing with an AK on the front lines in some of these developing countries. These are child soldiers who are being recruited and being kind of swept into this culture of violence. And we have an opportunity to take a different direction. And that's been my biggest priority. Sometimes I have to apologize to people. I'm like, sorry I didn't get back to your email. I'm out in these streets taking care of these babies. You know what I mean? But luckily we have a wonderful city staff, and I have other colleagues that have other areas of focus. Javiera is very embedded and ingrained in the Latinx population. My boy Charlie, he's over here on the legislative committee trying to figure out what we're going to do with our state government. Brother Middleton's got his lane, Steve, Jilly, like everybody's got their lane, and we have different kind of areas of focus. And in that way, we've kind of formed like Voltron, you know what I mean? Like Steve's at the head and we're all just, doing our thing. But my lane is definitely figuring out how we save the lives of these Black boys. And that's what I care about. And that's what I'll be focused on until we fix it, until we get it done.
Yes. And, I think a lot of people would be surprised that you have given such thought to what we need to do, because you're the son of famous parents. Your dad, Phil Freelon, was a well-known architect, and your mom, Nina Freelon, Grammy-nominated jazz singer. The world knows her. What does your mom think about your being on city council?
Oh, my mom is thrilled. She is just so proud, and and I want to do right by her and her mom. A lot of people know my mom because she's a singer, but people who know our family well, her reputation precedes her through her mother, Queen Mother Frances Pierce, who is a member of Monument of Faith Church with Pastor Laney, down there right by Fayette Place. And Queen Mother, my mom's mom, was a community organizer and a hairdresser and an entrepreneur. And she was someone who was very embedded in the community and cared deeply about our ancestors and our children. And, when I think about the work that I'm doing, which is service, I am a public servant. So much of my time, so many hours a day, a lot more than we get paid for, because we don't get very much to do this work. It is listening and trying to leverage the levers of power to better serve the people of Durham. And it is an honor and a privilege to be in service. We learn that. I mean, how many great people, Martin Luther King, Jesus. There's a lot of people who dedicated their lives to service, and you still remember their names to this day, based on how good a job they did serving people. Harriet Tubman, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer,
John Lewis.
John Lewis.
Just
Come
people
on, let's go.
Yeah.
Those are the real OGs.
Right.
They are the ones who use their hands and their hearts to labor on our collective behalf. And I stand in their legacy. I am their great grandson, nephew, brother, because those are the folks that I really admire. And so my mom and dad, they were the same way. Like my dad, he was an architect, and yes, he designed very many wonderful structures. But what about the buildings he didn't design? Let's talk about that for a minute. My dad was offered contracts early in his career to design prisons. He chose not to use his gifts, his God-given, blueprint, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Take this idea in my mind and turn it into a structure as beautiful as the Smithsonian Museum of the African American History and Culture. He had a gift, and he intentionally chose to invest those gifts in things that help uplift our people. And he could have made, he could have made the most pretty prison you've ever seen in your life. And he chose not to. He chose not to invest in his talents in building casinos. That's another structure that someone with his skill set could have poured his talents into creating. He chose not to do that. And so those were his gifts. I don't got the architecture gene. I didn't get that one from my dad. I inherited my grandmother's talents. I'm a communicator. I'm like my mom, I'm a performer. I know how to rock a crowd. I've got a gift of, the ability to be able to have an emotional intelligence and a kind of a charisma and social fluency that a lot of people don't have. And I've had it since I was a little kid. I can talk and relate to people very easily. And so, I can try to, use those talents towards a lot of ends that are selfish or, you know, that for a lot of things. But the way I was raised, my grandma said, here's one. She's like, you named me, now you're gonna tell them some of my quotes. This is one of my grandmother's quotes. Queen Mother said, lift as you climb. Lift as you climb. You know, literally. Come on, you too. Come on, bro. Let's go. Lift as you climb. And one of many quotes. The other one she said was, keep an attitude of gratitude. So when I'm struggling with, you know, the dire situations some of our Black communities especially are in, I keep an attitude of gratitude, because guess what? We don't got to walk through the back door to have dinner at Woolworths anymore. We don't have to, you know, deal with the realities and the constant terror of chattel slavery anymore. We don't have to deal with that. Our ancestors sacrificed their lives so we wouldn't have to deal with that. So
you are wise beyond your years. I can't believe you're just 36. You bring such I guess history and knowledge that most people your age don't relate to. But let me ask you, I know that being an artist, what do you do for fun that may overlap a great deal with your professional life rather? Do you have any hobbies or things that you just do for fun?
yeah, I just want to shout you out too. That I like how you're steering the conversation, because I could totally go into the deepest of rabbit holes on social issues. But I feel you. People want to know about some more light and positive aspects as well. So I will gladly follow your lead on that. What do I do for fun? You know, same things I did when I was a kid growing up. You know, go to the Eno. I love being in nature, listening to God in the abundant presence of nature. And I love doing that at the Eno. There's several little Eno entrances. Going to a rock quarry. I was just at Rock Quarry Park the other day, walking around that big watering hole. And so, yeah, being in nature is really important to me. I like making music, you know, especially with young people. My daughter, primarily, she's my number one music partner these days. She's 10 and is just an amazing singer and musician. But also at Black Space, I run a community, well, when it's not COVID, I'm running a community center called Black Space, where I work with kids to make music. And if you log on Spotify, this is one of our projects right now. If you go on Spotify, look up Durham Fi, Durham Fi, you'll see an album. It's an instrumental hip hop album in a genre called lo-fi. Lo-fi is like kind of a down tempo, chilled hip hop genre. And the Black Space kids, these are like 17, 18-year-old Durham kids who went to Durham School of the Arts just like I did. They produced a whole album, and each track is named after a different like Durham landmark or icon. Let me look it up right now. Durham, Durham Fi. So I'm on Spotify. The tracks have names like Roxborough, Brightleaf, Jordan Lake, you know, CCB Days, Lucky Strike, Ninth, you know, for 9th Street, Haytie, Eagle Pride, Central Park, Duke Gardens. It's just a beat tape. You know?
I have to check it out. I'm from Roxborough. That one definitely interested me.
Good. Listen to it. And that's what I do. Like, I like making music. I like listening to music. And Durham is just, and listen, these kids, I hate to take it back to the social issues, but these kids are making magic. They're birthing beats and songs into existence. And they're not out in these streets because they have something positive and constructive to do. So I would love to set up, you know, a studio in every hood, take one of them empty apartments out of McDougal Terrace, turn it into a studio, and give them kids a place to be and a thing to do. Same thing from, you know, Bentwood to Rochelle Manor to, you know, to Cornwallis. Like, take some of these empty units, housing authority, turn one into a studio, turn one into a daycare, turn one into a job center. We be good.
I think you have a magic wand there.
Come on now, where's my wand? My magic wand. Miss Page, City Manager Page. I don't want to disrespect my elder by calling her out her first name, but magic wand is really sticking in my head
Magic Wanda.
as a brilliant metaphor for
Uh-huh.
what she's capable of. And I believe in her so much. I believe in the chief. I believe in the mayor. I believe in the council. I think we can really
Right.
make some moves.
So, Pierce, you really have a passion for public service, and it sounds like political involvement as well. Why is this type of service so important to you? And do you think that will translate into higher political aspirations?
That's a good question. You know, I love Durham, and especially now that I'm serving in Durham, I don't really, I couldn't imagine doing this kind of work elsewhere, because
Mhm.
part of the reason I go so hard for Durham is because this is my home. Like, I'm accountable to the people every day that I'm organizing and speaking and advocating on behalf of. And it's such a blessing that I'm here and I get to put on for my people. And I can't imagine doing this kind of work with this kind of passion elsewhere. And so right now I'm very comfortable in the Bull City, leveraging my networks and my resources and brilliance and talent into the community that poured so much into me. Like that, when you talk about how wise I am, and I accept the compliment, thank you, I appreciate the compliment, but really what you're seeing is Queen Mother, you're seeing Baba Chuck, you're seeing Polly Murray, you're seeing Ann Atwater, you're seeing Nina and Phil Freelon, my siblings, you're seeing my middle school teachers, my high school coach, Miss Graves, my acting and theater coach at DSA. You're seeing the cumulative efforts of their love that they poured into me, coming out of me. And I know that I have a lot of abundance and gifts to continue to pass that baton and that love and that resilience forward to other people. And I feel very connected to place in that labor. I'm not, I don't know that I would be as capable of doing that in Washington, or even in Raleigh. Like, I'm a Durham dude. Like, that this is where I want to plant seeds. And I'll tell you just a little quick story about that too, how I came to deeply understand that Durham was connected to my purpose. For a long time I was doing projects internationally, and I was in the Congo working with kids making beats, and then we went to Panama and then Senegal and Fiji and Ethiopia, all these community centers where kids really needed help and they were really benefiting from my presence.
Mhm.
But I got a calling. There's another one from my grandmother. I told you she'd be back. She said, bloom where you're planted. All right, everybody listening. Queen Mother Frances Pierce told me to bloom where you're planted. And what that means to me is, I can go around the world and do great work, and, but those seeds, I'm not going to be around to understand the nuances of what that seed will need to grow and nurture. I don't speak the native language. I'm not from that hood. I'm from Durham. I understand this community very well. I don't know everything and I don't know everyone or haven't been everywhere, but I know a lot about Durham. And so when I plant a seed in Durham, I know exactly how to water it. I know exactly what this red clay soil needs for it to bloom and reach fruition. And when we harvest that fruit, I can make sure everybody get a little slice. You know what I mean? That bloom where you're planted was some very wise words. And let me say this too, to all my musicians and artists out there. There's this thought that if I want to get on as a musician, if I want to pursue acting as a career, I need to go to New York or Los Angeles, because that's where the scene is. That's where the industry is. But guess what though? My mother, who's been nominated for 6 Grammys and is, the international voice of jazz, you know, she started her career in Durham, performing at the Hayti, rocking at Bembe Music Festival, performing, at South Square Mall during the holidays, like, singing ballads in the lobby at the mall. Like, that's how humble my mom started her career. And she didn't need to go to New York. You don't need to do that. You can build a career and a name for yourself, especially now. We got an international airport right up the street and we got the internets. Like, it's never been a better time to invest in yourself. And we want you to stay in Durham and get it popping from Durham, like Nina Freelon, like Sylvan Esso, you know, like Jessamine Stanley. So many people have these national and international profiles, but they're based right in this beautiful, vibrant community. And so I just want to remind people that there's a lot of magic right here, and you too are capable of blooming where you're planted.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I could talk to you all day and learn so much from you. I mean, we're fortunate to have you as well as the entire Freelon family here. Is there anything else you'd like to add in closing that you want people to know about you?
I don't have anything else to say about myself, but I do want to say, excuse me, I do want to say that the man that you see here today, me, I am the product of my environment. You know, people talk about that a lot when they talk about, you know, kids who get caught up in a negative lifestyle. They say they're a product of their environment. I too am a product of my environment. And the difference between the outcome that you see here and some of the other outcomes that we've seen have to deal with people like you, everyone who's listening. I don't know if you hear that lawnmower in the background, so forgive me if there's some noise. So I'll make it quick. It's so important that everyone who's listening find somebody that they can mentor, find somebody that you can say some affirming words to, find somebody that you can lift up, find somebody, you can text them right now. Go pick up your phone and text somebody, tell them you love them, you know, and find some time out of your day that you can invest in someone other than yourself. And over time, if you continue to make those investments, you could really be saving somebody's life. And nobody's going to do this for us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And I'm calling on everybody in Durham to find somebody that you can lift up and find a way to do it. So that's it.
What a great way to end. Thank you so much for joining me, Council Member. I really appreciate your time today. And you can have you back and we can talk some more.
I love to talk. So you can have me back whenever you like.
I would love it. I would love it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
That does it for City Life. Don't forget to follow us on social media, watch us on the Durham Television Network and on YouTube, and listen to our podcast on iTunes. I'm Beverly Thompson. Thank you so much for joining me to learn more about city life in Durham.